And what we doing here, and what maybe even what we're listening to. Alright, let's get this of course. So, right, first things first, subscribe to the channel, like whatever content that you actually like, but drop comments where relevant, pretty much everywhere and anywhere that you can, please. Comments are the one thing that I do request. I'm not going to request you to like something you don't necessarily like, you know, but I want thoughts. So search up on the Google or the YouTube search bar or even Instagram. You search up RealEyes Cook, RealEyes, and then COOK. Follow the team on Twitter at realeyesbars, RealeyesBars. But yeah, the channel on the YouTube, I'm sure from Googling RealEyes Cook, you'd find you get a pop up to loads of YouTube things. It'll be the channel RealEyes under the minute at the minute rather. The YouTube channel's under RealEyes, ReAL, and a separate word EYES. It's got a logo that's very bright and colourful with flames through the middle and all that. And the big-headed black lab with his chunky monkey body and his big head up against the wall and grass is like a background picture there. Anyway, so this guy is discussing the 50 Cent and Ja Rule beef. Let's let him go on.
Murder Reigns off his 2002
I do have to
album,
add though.
Last Temptation. And in the video, there's a guy depicted as 50 Cent.
It's like he's going through magazines and other people's accounts of what happened back in the day.
Because Ja Rule couldn't go
if I were to guess, I'd say this guy didn't know like all the ins and outs back in the day as it was happening.
At that time,
I really genuinely don't think he did at that time.
Decided to go at 50 Cent and G-Unit on behalf of Ja Rule. Cadillac Todd decides to set it off with the diss track Used to Be, featuring Black Child and Young Merc.
Used to be my dog, you was in my left titty. Scream Southside, thought you would ride with me. Found out you a snitch and you switch sides. 50, now with your wall, make sure you die quickly. I don't play your hit up, yeah, you would take back from Lloyd. I know when
so yeah, although I'm running on low energy and everything, I guess we'll hear little clips, tracks going back and forth at this point between like Aftermath and Shady, G-Unit Records up there against Murder Inc.
The song There's a Snitch in the Club. Black Child then has his go at dissing 50, and he decides to jump on 50 Cent's wanks.
Basically, guys, to summarize it up, back when I was a kid, I would be going out in the center of London. It didn't take me that long on an underground tube, grabbing all the latest mixtapes and hip-hop magazines that had been imported over into like Wembley and that. Just grabbing that all up, and wherever I had to go to cop the CDs, Central London markets and ish. And yeah, I would hustle money at school. I would sell like crisps at triple their value. Go out at break time. Obviously, I'm the only one skipping outside of the school to the shops, get orders, bring it back and make triple the money of the retail price. Like, and the triple bit's just the profit. Never mind what I paid. Sometimes I didn't even pay in the first place anyway. So, making enough money to be able to nip out of school. And every day, pretty much, I'll be in central London doing my thing. And I'll be up to date on rap and what was going on, hip-hop. Mostly what was going on in the United States. Because the UK at that point in time, well, it didn't really have a hardcore scene. There wasn't, we're talking before YouTube even existed, you know. So, I don't know, the only UK rappers about, I mean, you could, maybe say, this was even before Skinny Man in the Streets and things like that, and I'm not even going to say things like Blazing Squad, you know, or things like R&B acts, you know, it's just an R&B, but yeah, let's go on. Let's hear what
the
this guy's
instrumental,
saying
and
anyway.
he remixed the track into Black Ferrari,
Whilst
the
I
real
roll a
Wangsta.
cigarette and drink
And
some
on
beer.
this track, he's calling 50 Cent out for snitching and brags about stabbing him at the Hit Factory.
You knew I was coming dumping, who wanted 100 rounds? Didn't I stab you up? Don't make me gun you down. Your whole career is nothing but a publicity stunt until I kill you and give you the publicity you want.
While all this was going on February 18th, 2003, the Cradle
For the record, that bar makes no sense. I mean, back then I remember picking up and listening to this from both sides. This was even before LimeWire, bear in mind, so I had to go get, copies, like on disc and that. But yeah, I gotta say, Shady were winning 110% production wise, engineering of the tracks, the lyrics, just everything, the beats, the whole lot, everything. Every time they were winning. It's like Murder Inc. was sending, they were sending 10-year-olds with just their fists to big hench 30-year-olds in their physical prime, also who were armed with every weapon imaginable. That's the kind of fight it was. And yeah, what was I going to say? That the last bar, yeah, how can the publicity he wants be being dead? He wouldn't be here around to enjoy it then, would he, you pleb? You know what I'm saying? 50 Cent didn't want to be sprayed all over the streets, because he wouldn't be around to enjoy the publicity of that, would he, Unique? Yeah.
Rave soundtrack dropped, and on this soundtrack there is a track
There's
called...
just something that tells me, like, from listening, we're 24 minutes into what this guy's pieced together. I mean, it's like he's just reading through magazines and, like he's just read up a load and now he's just, put it out there and tried to piece it together. But you can tell he's not a proper hip-hop head. He's not a guy who's... I'm gonna guess he wasn't there at the time even listening to these tracks. Let alone is he breaking down bars and analysing them or doing anything like that. So, yeah, my guess is he's, like a lot of YouTubers these days, it kind of annoys me. They'll jump onto a subject or something just because they know it'll get views, comments, or because it'll get the people going. They won't necessarily have a passion or an interest for it or have been there at the time, with all ears to the ground for it, and then it kind of annoys me.
With Eminem, Obi Trice, and DMX, and Eminem had heard all the things that Ja Rule were saying about him, all those...
Well, of course, he had 50... Of course Eminem had heard it all. I mean, 50 Cent was his artist for one. Two, he was keeping his ear to the ground and watching and hearing everything in regards to 50 Cent long before he signed him. So, of course Eminem heard everything. That goes without saying. Come on.
Shots he sent in interviews. So towards the end of Eminem's verse, he calls out Ja Rule and says that he can get it too. After that, a few weeks passed.
That track there's Go to Sleep. Die, die. Time's up. Close your eyes and go to sleep. Why are you still alive? How many times I gotta say close your eyes? That was Eminem dissing Benzino, if I'm thinking back right. I'm tired as anything. I could be stuck here. When we jump to a verse in my head, get it full verse. No reverse on purpose. Got you. You gonna see use a circus. Obi Trice was on it. On that Go to Sleep. He's believed. Use not the streets. Use the vest. Use not. Oh, hold up. Choose the rest. Alright. Let's just go on with this. I'm very sleepy.
On March 29th, 2003, the G-Unit Radio Part 1 Smoking Day 2 mixtape was released, and on the track, The Realest Killers, featuring an unreleased Tupac verse, 50 calls out Ja Rule for pretending to be a fake Tupac, and more.
Hold up. How can you pretend to be a fake Tupac? You would pretend to be Tupac, but you wouldn't pretend to be a fake Tupac. You can't pretend to be a fake version of something. Even the way this guy is saying things don't make sense. But yeah, this bar that's coming up, is this a Ja Rule. You pretended to be Park, you pretended to be, but you're not. See it so clear, you can't take the pressure. You know.
Then 2 days later, on March
You loudmouth. The screams.
31st, 2003, Ja Rule decided to respond to Eminem's warning shot on Go to Sleep with a track called A Warrior's Words featuring Black Child.
What the hell is this? What's this grade? Looking out through the dark, I see like shades. So I'm hunting you blindly with the sword gauge. Cause I heard that little nigga there was talking crazy. You heard your crack, I'm gonna ground beef out your baby. And have your moms getting raped by niggas that spicks on the daily. You know you feel me? Cause I'm clearly the rap king's Jimmy Hoffa, nigga.
Then within
I don't think Ja Rule's coming back very hard at all.
a matter of days, Ja Rule wastes no time, and on April 4th, 2003, he drops the diss song called Loose Change. And on this track, he's going at
yeah, Loose Change was going at 50 Cent, you know. I mean, like, I could, while I'm fully awake, you know, and properly with it, go through and just examine and, I'm not even going to say what I could do because I'm too sleepy for it all. I'll just drop some comments in, peeps. But let's see what...
Everybody on Aftermath, on Interscope, everyone affiliated with 50 Cent, he said...
Maybe because everybody had dissed him.
Fuck it, I don't care anymore. He called...
I don't think that was the case as such.
He sent a snitch and said that...
I think it was because everybody on Shady Aftermath had already disrespected Ja Rule and already gone at him.
He would get shot again.
But I don't think this guy realizes that, the guy talking there.
Eminem Feminem called out his daughter, dissed Chris Lighty, who's the Violator management of 50 Cent.
Dude, you can't call out a kid, and I wouldn't say he called out Haley. Come on. This guy needs to say what he's saying properly. You don't call out kids, come on. Haley's not a rapper that he can call out.
Jimmy Iovine from Interscope, and after this diss track dropped, it was officially Shady Aftermath versus Murder.
If you're close. Is he serious? It was already Shady Aftermath versus Murder Inc. This guy really wasn't there at the time. He doesn't know what he's talking about, trust me.
Second Life.
It's just the way he's going about saying things. I mean, come on. It was already Shady Aftermath versus Murder Inc. It wasn't all of a sudden that. I don't know what he's talking about.
It's gonna breed here like 50 who snitched on minutes. And Murder Inc. was in the deepest condolences and sympathies to Aftermath and Shady. In the scope and Jimmy Iovine. You know your team, they really some peons, getting peed on and linked on. I'm talking about faggot ass gay Dre Young. And she told me all about how you used to take transvestites home and occasionally wear thongs. No wonder feminine be cross-dressing in pumps and tight little dress. Rich and shook, it got bust rhyming the same old hood. And was the do-rag off. You're never gonna have waves, you'll never know black pain. But you can become the first white rapper slain. Just get your money, man. The ink is running things. Hide out with loose change and Dre. The day's coming too. Cause I got a team of misfits. Be squatting, handle their business. Cause I'm shooting at all y'all niggas. Shut up. Damn, you claim your mother's a crackhead and Kim is a known slut. So what's Haley gonna be when she grows up?
After Eminem
supposed to be calling out Haley because that girl doesn't call out a child.
Within a matter of days, on April 11, 2003, on a Thursday night, DJ K-Slade premiered The First Response, which was Eminem, 50 Cent, and Busta Rhymes over Tupac's Hail Mary beats. Chris Lighty started off the track.
Okay, for one, Tupac didn't produce or make the beat for Hail Mary, what we all know is, you know, originally come from him as Hail Mary. So how it's Tupac's beat, I don't know, but it's beat notoriously used by Tupac.
By saying fuck you or Gotti. Eminem poked fun at Ja Rule, still thinking that he's Tupac. 50 Cent continued that, and Busta Rhymes completely spazzed.
I wouldn't say it was Busta Rhymes who completely, quote-unquote, spazzed. They all just gunned down Ja Rule and Murder Inc. They all just went at him. In response to Ja Rule more than anything, everybody just put a verse hitting back at him. I wouldn't say Busta Rhymes stood out, let alone spazzed out. Like, spazzed out implies someone went crazy and just, you know, went insane on someone. Busta didn't do that. He kept it intact mentally like that.
He would never ride with ya. Nah, 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 nah. You ain't no killer, you a pussy. That ecstasy done got you all emotional and mushy. Bitches wearing rags and photos. Jai's words being quoted in the source, stealing pop shit like he just wrote it. Little nigga named Jai think he lie like me. Talking about he left the hospital, took 9 like me. You live in fantasies, nigga. I rejected deposit. When your little sweet ass gon' come out of the closet. Now he wondering why DMX blow them out. Next time grown folks talking, bitch, close your mouth. Peep me, I take this bullshit deeply. Done seen too many real niggas ball and let these bitch niggas beat me. One of the most humble, rep the streets to call.
Yo, check it, people. This is supposed to be Busta spazzing out. He's the most chill and calm about it on the track, for God's sake.
Fuck you come and bother me for? It's been a long time coming, like a blessing.
You don't even sound angry or aggressive about it.
Fucking respect you. It's kind of funny when I be pop when I fake like he dog running around talking shit that he ain't capable of. If you want to beef with me, then I'm beefing with you. I think about the game and what it's like, and
what would it be without you?
Finished. I ain't trying to repeat this just because I'm cool. Shouldn't take my kindness for weakness.
And of course, it didn't end there. A few days later, on April 15th, 2003, DJ Green Lantern dropped a mixtape called Invasion Part 2, Conspiracy Theory, and throughout...
For the record, Green Lantern was with Shady Records. I bet that guy talking doesn't even know that much.
This whole mixtape, Eminem, G-Unit, Busta Rhymes, everyone from Aftermath is going at Ja Rule. This mixtape birthed a bunch of diss tracks, one of them being Do Re Mi, which was Haley's Revenge, featuring Eminem, D12, and Obi Trice. Tony Yayo.
Man's got his facts wrong. I'm pretty sure it didn't birth Do Re Mi. I'm pretty sure that was out and about, floating about the underground prior to this.
Had a freestyle while being locked up, going at Ja Rule and Murder Inc. And there was a track called Bump Heads with Eminem, 50 Cent, Tony Yayo, and Lloyd Banks.
Oh, come on, Bump Heads. Oh, this guy knows nothing. Seriously, this guy knows nothing. Bump Heads. What, this is how he thinks Bump Heads was first released? Seriously? Yo, this guy ain't fit to be doing a 50 Cent versus Ja Rule, you know, over the beef, like, oh, whatever he wants to call this thing. He doesn't know his facts, man. Like, really, he doesn't know the history behind some of the tracks he's naming and nothing. It's just seems bizarre that this guy be the one. Someone can come over and do it better than him.
Going at Ja Rule.
Haley! Come here, baby. Come here, baby.
I'll try not to say too much because I'm too tired to articulate myself properly.
I'm about to get rid of some hoes. It's simple. I'm quick to murder ink with lead, and I ain't talking about a pencil. Look at what the fuck you done got into. I see you found your niche. You just a bitch with a mental.
Don't rate me, but we don't sing, motherfuckers. So Murder Inc. do your thing, motherfuckers. You unleashed on a team who expects nothing less than R&B coming from that regime.
Me, why so loud? You die, don't blame me, cause you washed the floor just fine. I'ma stay on my side, on my side. Chopper playing, I get off, you're not too hot. Don't blame me, so hot, and you're not doing that me. The only shot you got. Chopper playing, I get off, you're not too hot. If you pop, all that shit you pop.
After that mixtape came out, a few days later, Ja Rule dropped a diss track called Guess Who Shot Ya, which essentially was a response to 50 Cent's Fuck You track from the Guess Who's Back mixtape. On this track, Ja Rule's making fun of 50 Cent for not knowing who shot him, and he's dissing the rest of the G-Unit.
I'm trying not to correct or say or add too much here. It's hard.
Is it murder that shot me? It's about the pop, hits the cop. If 50 call the cops, was he heard mad shots? Shots to the face, I've been passing with your back. Those bumps and bruises, M1s and Uzis. Ja nigga smash fools. Curtis Snow, and he mad because he knows them God's rule.
Ja Rule also followed that diss track up with a new track called So Hot, in which he disses 50 Cent even more.
Cause you know who I'm talking to, Mr. 5-0. You know where they go when them niggas need info. Over and out 10-4. I'll look at you later. The streets know, but I don't want them to call me a hater. Cause I got guap just like you, but I don't get shot like you do, you bitch nigga.
Fast forward to June 2nd, 2003, and Preem gets sentenced to 37 months. The judge said there was no reason to be anywhere near firearm or target practicing. There's no reason for you to keep your skills up, the judge told Preem. Preem still faced up to 7 years in prison on the state gun charge in New York, but he was trying to withdraw that plea, especially with the federal investigation into Murder Inc. and all the allegations swirling around the streets, the hip-hop industry, and in the media. 2 days later, on June 4th, 2003, 50 Cent performs at Hot 97's Summer Jam. And of course, 50 took advantage of this and decided to diss Ja Rule and Irv Gotti and the rest of the Murder Inc. for not being real hip-hop. Unfortunately, there is no video footage of this, but I do have audio of 50 Cent dissing Irv Gotti and Ja Rule and putting them up.
I guarantee you, the guy who's talking there, all he's done is gone back. He's probably read someone's probably written up their own little version of events practically, or what they could find on it. He's probably reading it out. He's probably looked and done some basic stuff. And yeah, I just don't think the guy's an expert whatsoever. And I don't think he was paying attention at the time that all this was happening live at all. Not for 1 second would I put money that he was. No way.
And now, a public service announcement for those who may be confused, courtesy of the G.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been brought to my attention that you guys don't know what bitch-ass niggas look like. You bought their music, you've seen their pictures. Take a look at this.
Ja, what is this new look?
I don't know, man. She want me to leave this street life alone. Guess that's what I'm gonna do.
This sweater is definitely not hip-hop. This is R&B. I know this is not hip-hop. You know this is not hip-hop. And Irv knows this is not hip-hop. Exhibit B. You see it, folks.
And let's all be honest, Ja Rule, his mainstream records, his ones that were doing best back then and all that, it was not hip-hop or rap, it was R&B.
This faggot asshole is soaking wet right now. He likes moist. I know that's not hip-hop. You know that's not hip-hop. Irv knows that's not hip-hop. Exhibit C. I cry. You cry. We cry together. Hip-hop. That's R&B. I know that that's not hip-hop. You know that that's not hip-hop. And Irv knows that that's not hip-hop. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The next time you're flipping through your radio or through your TV, you know how to identify a bitch-ass nigga.
In the same month of June, Irv Gotti and Ja Rule got on the cover of XXL magazine, and all they did throughout that whole magazine is talk shit about 50, Eminem, and even said they'll slap the shit out of Dr. Dre. In the article, the interviewer asks, have you and 50 crossed paths since the Hit Factory? He said, we've been in the same city, same spot, supposed to be in the same places.
Yo, guys, we gotta pause up and just imagine that Ja Rule was recently the front man for Beats and all of that, said to be the founder and all of that, and imagine that Ja Rule was recently released as a main part of a new DLC for Grand Theft Auto 5 Online. Yeah, we're not on that other planet that doesn't exist and was only just imagined for the first time. So let's get back to this.
Awards, no 50.
Levels.
#1 album in the country, hottest album, hottest rapper right now in the country, and you're not at the Grammy Awards. Your man's performing, takes an award, and you're not there. You don't come and take your seat. M, you never sat down at the awards. You stay in the back the whole fucking time. I wasn't supposed to do nothing but slap you. You should have took your seat. It wasn't going to be nothing. You can take a slap. If you would have went any further, then I would have whooped your ass. But a slap, you can take a slap. I was waiting. Confrontation. Show your face. Talk about it. Be about it. And when I get my fucking hands on 50 again, I'm gonna wear his ass out. Him, M, Dre, and any one of these guys. I'm gonna wear their ass out on top of raps. And of course, Dr. Dre heard this and broke his silence on July 2nd, 2003. He dropped a new track with Obi Trice and Eminem called Shit Hits the Fan. On the same month, on July 26th,
I'm gonna add that Shit Hits the Fan is now on West Coast Classics on GTA 5 online. Just saying. And the whole, like, that track, it wasn't made just because of Ja Rule or anything. It, like, you know, it was a good track in its own right and everything. It's not like every other line disses them.
3, Lloyd Banks drops his mixtape, Money in the Bank, and on that tape there's a track called What Goes Around featuring 50 Cent, which is taking direct shots at Murder Inc.
You still struggling, down to your last rock, G-Unit is gorillas and black childs and mascots. Thought you wouldn't hear my voice, I'm in the hood cause I'm hood, you in the hood cause you ain't got no choice. It's top seller getting stick for a shine, either I'm blind or Shantae top.
Money in the bank.
I'm spawned Charlie in studio hours and waste. She look like she took a bag of flour in the face. You want street credibility instead of mistake. Come on, Jai, I'm a crackhead.
At this point in August and September of 2003, 50 Cent was working on the G-Unit debut album Beg for Mercy, while Ja Rule was working on his 5th studio album Blood in My Eye. But in between that, Charlie Baltimore, who was signed to Murder Inc., decided to release new diss tracks going at 50 Cent and G-Unit. She said she wanted to release diss tracks going at them earlier, but Irv Gotti never let her. So, in between those months, she released a diss track called Get At Me Dog.
I know you got snitch in your po-po stopping with your painting a fake picture. So somebody get your bitch, I ain't the one. Chuck ain't never snitch shit, XJ or on, motherfucker. That unit.
After that, in the month of October...
Well, that last track there shown a clip of was not very impressive at all, was it?
Ja Rule started promoting his 5th studio album and released the first single off it called Clapback on October...
Okay, the good thing about Clapback was the beat. I actually know someone who grew up with, who I went to like primary school and all that with, who managed to bust a rap over the Clapback instrumental, and well, I can't say it sounded a load worse than Ja Rule's, because it didn't. I'm not gonna say it sounded a load better, because I wouldn't go that way either. I'd say, yeah, sort of similar.
14th, 2003.
And don't get me wrong, Clapback weren't too bad. It's
Eminem.
just the rest of the album I was worrying about.
Find out what M lies, tired of involved. First, God give me this blessing to handle my business on these wasted snitches at the Nina Lucas.
A few weeks pass, and Ja Rule decides to have a sit-down with Minister Farrakhan on BET. In this interview, Ja Rule talks about the various incidents he had with 50 Cent, including the Hit Factory fight, Atlanta fight, and all the diss tracks they had back and forth. And they reached out to 50 Cent to sit down with Ja Rule and Minister Farrakhan and do the interview on BET.
Yeah,
but
I
it never
can't see
happened because 50 Cent felt it was a
sitting down
promotional
with
stunt
Ja Rule.
for Ja Rule's new album.
Well, obviously, who doesn't think that that was an attempt at a promotional stunt? Of course it was.
50 was interviewed by MTV, and this is what he said. He said, "I'm not interested in it. I feel like Ja's interview with Farrakhan was a promotional stunt. When I sat there and I was watching it, in the middle of it, the break comes, and here comes a commercial for his album. His album actually came out 7 hours.
For anyone who hasn't got a brain, I'll just let you know for like the second or third time. Yes, Ja Rule did want 50 to sit down there for promo for his album.
Later, that wasn't an
probably because he knew that Shady Aftermath had killed his career already.
At the same time on the street. I can't see you putting that out and you feeling the same way you say you felt with Minister Farrakhan. 50 then continued and said, everybody out there knows I don't like him and he doesn't like me. I'm not stuck on him. I just made an entire album, which was G-Unit's Beg for Mercy, and didn't mention him. I gotta move on. If you pick up his album, Blood in My Eye, it's about 10 references to me on 10 of the songs. The success I'm having is eating at him. Then, of course, a few days later, after the Minister Farrakhan interview, on November 4th, 2003, Ja Rule releases his 5th studio album, Blood in My Eye. And in this whole album, he's going at 50 Cent, Dr. Dre, Eminem, the whole G-Unit camp, specifically on the song Things Gon' Change / 2 Punk Ass Quarters.
First off, fuck the snitch and that unity claim. Fuck Dre, Partial, and Eminem. Plus the world heard it before, they tired of them. And they waiting for that thug shit from Rule again. I probably go to jail for sending 50 to hell. If I lay banks down, Yayo gon' tell.
And the album, however, was the worst performing Ja Rule album at that time. The album only sold 140,000 copies within the first week and failed to go gold. Ja Rule has said, though, in various interviews that this was an album that he needed to make and wasn't looking to make radio hits. He just wanted to get a lot of things off his chest.
Your last album wasn't as mainstream as the other ones were. Well, Blood in My Eye was a real personal album. You know what I mean? Like, I felt I had to make Blood in My Eye for myself, as a man.
Around the same time in November, there was a demo CD leaked by Eminem. The CD was called Straight from the Lab, and the way it leaked was that Eminem's half-brother, Nate, had a friend over that took the CD and leaked the tracks online. On the CD, there were 2 new tracks going at Ja Rule. One was Monkey See, Monkey Do, and the other one was Bully.
I've never been shot, but I think me and 50 must have been caught from the same cloth. Cause I've always came off like God's chain when they tried to rush him and lost and came back and gave him a watch in exchange for it. A lot of rappers on my list that just ain't John. I'ma read that motherfucker off come April. You pussies think I went soft cause 8 Mile. When I come back, I'll be shooting more than just paintballs, trust me. They just keep hounding at me now that I'm down with 50. Suddenly now I got beef with this faggot job. But his ass is such a puppet. Or could shove his whole hand up it and just make him say what he wants him to say. But shook as herb on a string and Herb so nervous that he says anything to this man to keep him at bay. So now John thinks that he's so tough and murder inks the big bad wolf and they gon' huff and puff and blow our label down. But our building's made out of bricks, so you ain't taking out shit. And all you just did a song with Bobby Brown.
After G-Unit dropped their debut album, Beg for Mercy, a few days later, on November 19th, 2003, they dropped the G-Unit Radio Part 4 mixtape, No Peace Talks. And in this mixtape, 50 is making fun of the Minister Farrakhan interview with Ja Rule and making fun of the song Clap Back and how whack it is.
They gon' clap back, you gon' clap back, you gon' clap back, you gon' clap back.
Niggas wanna hear me rap to that shit, right? Nah, nigga, I ain't gonna do it. Can't help you out like that, baby, you know what I mean? Hey, man. Hey, you heard? You know what I mean? It's fucked up what happened to that nigga, right, man? Damn, man, that nigga was hot last year, man. It's against my religion to let a nigga survive, you know what I mean? This is the laws of power, baby. You know what I mean? When you destroy completely, bitch.
After this, the beef had died down significantly, and on a Vibe magazine cover with G-Unit on it in February 2004, 50 said that he was done with the beef and that Ja Rule had been finished. Ja Rule also graced the cover of Vibe magazine 2 months later on April 2004, and in this magazine he said that he was done with the beef as well and that 50 did no damage to him. He's going around having fun, people still showing love, and that he's working on his new album. Fast forward to June 12th, 2004, 50 Cent gets booked to perform at Hot 97 Summer Jam once again. But this time he wasn't the headliner, R. Kelly was, so when 50 came out and did his set, he still used the Summer Jam screen and decided to do something called the Granny Awards, and on this he was just calling out the wackest rappers.
Let me correct a few things that were said there. I won't correct absolutely everything. But yeah, Straight from the Lab at the time, that was not known to have been leaked by Eminem's half-brother at all. In fact, the first I've ever heard of that was from what this guy has just said. Which comes, 15 or so, no, more than 15 years later. And Straight from the Lab was not like a project that with every track dissing Ja Rule, far from it. I think it was originally said to be tracks that were actually going to go on to Eminem's upcoming album back then. But then obviously those tracks which was sketchy, scrappy ideas would have been dropped, and other stuff made and recorded and whatever and popped in place. Example, I think there was a Cannabis diss on Straight from the Lab EP, and there was a track called, was it American You or American Me, or We as Americans, that's the one. And, you know, a few other pieces. There was about 6 tracks in total. Do Re Mi wasn't solely produced to this Ja Rule, I don't believe. I don't want to say too much here, because I had to, you know, just go back and revise a few facts. And, yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's being said, not necessarily just straight up wrong, but it sure ain't being elaborated on, and there are things that are, yeah, being put across wrong. But there are things that's being said wrong.
Who won the award for being the wackest rappers? He decided to diss Ja Rule.
Oh, and for the record, in the eyes of a lot of the hip-hop world, at this point in time, after some of these tracks have been released, like this sort of point, Ja Rule, he was finished. Pretty much.
Button,
Finished.
Black Child, and even Lil' Kim, and then nominated The Source for being the worst hip-hop magazine. And after this, G-Unit performed with Young Buck, Lloyd Banks, and then Tony Yayo finally got out, so he got on stage. And this is the infamous moment when chairs were being thrown from Bang'em Smurf, and a whole bunch of crazy shit was happening during the concert. But that didn't stop 50, he continued, and then towards the end...
yeah, the infamous Source Awards. Is this on about Source Awards? Either way, there was some hip-hop awards that back in the, what can you call them, the days between 2000 and 2010, in between that era. There was hip-hop awards and just awards events that got a little bit, amped up.
When he was about to be done with his set, he decided to ask the audience if they were ready to see R. Kelly, and when the crowd screamed, he mocked R. Kelly's step dance and his sex tape scandal. And why 50 did this was that he heard that R. Kelly, being the headliner, was going to bring out Ja Rule with him. And because of that, 50 didn't like that. He didn't want Ja Rule coming back in the spotlight because that would reignite his career. But 50...
Basically, even this guy is now admitting that Ja Rule's career was pretty much in the dirt and buried.
Kept performing. He performed Stunt 101, but then his mic got cut off. He dared the police to get him off the stage, but he got pissed off and just decided to throw his mic down and left. And in the 50 Cent special by MTV called All Eyes on Me, the sequel, 50 Cent details this.
There was a possibility we bringing him out, so I damaged the situation before he had an opportunity. I went on before him, I said what I said, and as I left, 60% of the building left with us. And, I mean, he came out about 45 minutes later and did his set. He didn't bring Ja with him, but he could have. So I had to do it to him because he could have.
A few months pass, and Ja Rule is gearing up to drop his 6th studio album, which is essentially his comeback from that beef that happened in 2003 with 50M and various other people. He drops the single Wonderful with R. Kelly and Ashanti on September 28th, 2004. The song does very well, so now we are hearing whispers of Ja Rule's comeback after the beef. The song went top 5 on the Hot 100.
Oh, come off it. Ja Rule never had some major comeback. Definitely didn't have a major comeback in the UK and England, and considering the guy talking sounds like he's from, you know, like he's based in the UK, in England. I mean, he really didn't have his ears to the street at the time at all, you can just tell.
It peaked at number 5. Then Ja Rule comes back with a street single on October 27, 2004. He drops the song New York featuring Fat Joe and Jadakiss. On Ja Rule's verse, he sends some slight shots going at 50 Cent. After this track dropped is when 50 decided to attack everyone surrounding Ja Rule. He saw Fat Joe and Jadakiss as people siding with Ja Rule and supporting Ja Rule. Then Ja Rule graced the cover of The Source magazine on November 2004, and in this magazine he talked about 50 Cent. He talks about his comeback in the music game with the songs with R. Kelly and the New York record. He also says that 50 Cent was corny for criticizing Ja Rule, singing about women, and then 50 doing the same thing later on his album. On November 12th, 2004, Eminem finally released his fifth studio album, Encore. And on this album, he had a track called Like Toy Soldiers. And on this track, he addresses the Ja Rule beef and says that he's officially done with it.
I think that was the one, the tracks on Straight from the Lab. They were either due to be put on the Eminem show or Encore. I believe it was Encore, actually. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was Encore.
On December 23rd, 2004, 50 stopped by Hot 97 and decided to mention that he has a song called Piggy Bank going at Ja Rule, Jadakiss, Fat Joe, Nas, and Khalees. Fast forward to January 7th, 2005, and 50 Cent drops the G-Unit Radio Part 10, 2050 Before the Massacre. And on this tape, he has a track called I'm an Animal going at Supreme, Irv Gotti, Ja Rule, and the rest of them.
Back in the early 60s, El Salvador was growing in numbers.
Guys, this is some random advert that's fucked on. I'm gonna skip it. But yeah, something to do with State of Soccer TV.
Increasing population was
Murder Inc.
This is gonna hurt this time. Let's see if y'all niggas can survive the second round. It's over. What? It's like a murder in a clearance cell. That's about me. They'll tell you I'm an animal. Animal. Touch one of mine, I'll react like an animal. Animal. They say I have no conscience, I feel if I have to, yo. They say I'm an animal. Sometimes a nigga cross the line and he got to go. Move on, I'm like an animal. Southside ain't Southside without the team. Niggas starving, I feed them, they'll ride for me. Niggas face come, niggas shit get funky. Herb up bring so much he finna beat his bunkie. In a park full of kids, I pop off the mat and see the flare from the nozzle and scatter like rats. Hey, tell Pring, send me a written apology. We can squash this shit. Nah, nigga. We ain't squash this shit. You can go get Farrakhan, you can go get whoever the fuck you are.
Ja was a sweetheart.
okay.
You like Ja too, right?
No.
Yeah, you do.
No.
You be dancing to that.
I'm not dancing to that.
You be liking that.
Okay.
That's not hip hop. That's
If
R&B.
you think that I'm dancing to that, we can meet in the club tonight and you see that I'm dancing.
Now, I'm sure you ain't dancing to nobody likes Ja Rule in the States now. Can't make it a show. It's finished. Because I said he's finished.
In the same month of January 2005, things weren't looking good for Supreme. The feds were trying to give Supreme the death penalty in the cases that he was facing. They were constantly adding new allegations and superseding indictments. On January 18, 2005, the grand jury handed down the first superseding indictment charging Supreme with the E Moneybags murder. The following month, on February 22, 2005, the song Piggy Bank from 50 Cent's The Massacre leaked. And on this song, he was sending shots at various people, even some slight shots at Ja Rule.
I got 100 guns, 100 clips, why I don't hear no shots?
Thinking back, I don't remember it as Piggy Bank leaking. I have to double check on that one. Obviously, I remember having it, and of course, but yeah. And Piggy Bank, I mean, you know, that was an album track. You know, it wasn't like a throwaway track or an EP track or a diss track. It was an actual album track, regardless of the fact that it disrespected some guys or whatever. But yeah.
50 then graced the cover of an XXL magazine on...
I think you'll find he was gracing... and it's not XXL, it's double XL. Yeah, I think someone tell this guy, whoever he is, that, yeah. What else was I gonna say? Goddamn, beside the fact it's not XXL, it's double XL, I think you'll find he graced the cover because Massacre was being released. It was the Massacre promo. You know, his second album.
March 2005, and he mentioned Jadakiss, Fat Joe, Ja Rule, and various other people. He joked around and said that once...
It is really bad that people, like, that this video is said to have over 2.5 million views, and the guy doing the talking and that isn't a true hip-hop head. I just find that bad and sad, and, yeah, just not cool.
Everything is done, he's going to sign Ja Rule to G-Unit instead of Murder Inc. because Murder Inc. is dying out. The interviewer asks You listen to Ja Rule albums? 50 responded saying, I'll listen to Ja Rule's record to hear if there's anything good there. I might sign Ja Rule when he's done at Murder Inc. After I destroy him, I'll rebuild him because...
Yeah, I think this guy actually thinks that 50 was being serious, like 50 wanted to sign him or something. 50's just mocking it, you know, like, I've destroyed him. Here, I'm gonna take the PISS and say I'm gonna sign him and rebuild him and make profit off it.
He never was strong enough to individually go against me. He needs support of everyone else to try to attempt that. And they should have been smart enough to tell him not to directly go against me. At this point, 50 Cent's attention shifted towards Jadakiss, Fat Joe, and even his former own label mate, The Game. As months went on in 2005, things weren't looking good for Supreme. On June 23, 2005, the grand jury handed down a second superseding indictment which charged Supreme with the Troy Singleton murder. As the months went on, Ja Rule was still laying low. This had been the first year in 2005 since 1999 that he hadn't released a new album. On September 7th, 2005, the New York Post reported that after 50 Cent survived the initial shooting in 2000, Supreme and various members of Murder Inc. kept tabs on the rapper in an ongoing plot to kill him. The feds came to that conclusion after intercepting a series of two-way pages like the one that Preem received from Chris Gotti on August 17th, 2002, which simply said 50 is in the hood, Guy R. Brewer. 50 even saw the release of the court papers detailing the plot by Preem to have him killed as a means of trafficking on his notoriety. 50 caught wind of all this, and shortly after, 50 was calling for the release of the incarcerated Supreme so that he could die on the streets. 50 said they should let him out so he can die in the streets like he's supposed to. If he could touch down in the street and find out what the difference between 50 Cent without finances is and the new me, in my neighborhood you can get somebody killed for $5,000. If I showed you my bank account, you knew I could really create Vietnam there at $5,000 a body. Then there were rumors by the feds and various other people that Supreme was responsible for the murder of 50 Cent's mother, Sabrina, who allegedly worked for the Supreme team in the 80s and was caught stealing to support her crack addiction. And this fueled the belief that 50 had been on a lifelong mission to get revenge on Supreme because of that. But 50, of course, in interviews denied that Supreme had anything to do.
I guess that would also explain why Supreme would have sent a guy out to, you know, I guess, you know, he would want 50 Cent dead all the more if he was involved in the death of his mother, because he's probably thinking if this guy's on the come up, well, amongst other issues, gotta get him killed, you know? What if he gets revenge upon me kind of vibes. So, yeah, that might be why he got a hitman and said, yo, shoot and put a hell of a lot of bullets in him. Won't explain why he took 9. But, yeah, whether Supreme Kenneth McGriff is behind hiring a guy to shoot 50 or not, with
his mother dying, and he denies that Supreme is his father. And if you've seen 50's movie Get Rich or Die Trying, you know that the character Majestic is loosely based on Supreme. So a lot of people said that 50 created Majestic, and the fact that Majestic killed 50's mother in the movie would say that 50 was hinting that Supreme had something to do with him killing his mother. On October 24th, 2005, it was finally time for Chris Gotti and Irv Gotti to go on trial for money laundering with Murder Inc. and Supreme. At first, this Murder Inc. trial was tied with Supreme's.
Another thing I'll actually mention is the guy doing all the commentating and that. All he's basically done is like read from magazines and probably just read through a timeline and just put it into audio and shoved a few pictures in the background. I don't think it's like he was taking notes or keeping his ears and eyes on the beef at the time, not for 1 second.
Trial, but as time went on, the feds decided to split the two cases. So they decided to go in trial with just Murder Inc. and decided to charge Chris Gotti and Irv Gotti with money laundering and the conspiracy to money launder. And the feds have a conviction rate of 90 to 98%. So that means about 10% to 2% of people would end up being acquitted from the charges that were made against them. Chris Gotti and Irv Gotti were facing a maximum of 20 years in prison. However, they both felt confident that they would win this case because they knew that they did nothing wrong. All they were doing was helping Supreme get out the streets and make legal money with them.
About they knew that they did nothing wrong. How does the guy commentate and know that they did nothing wrong? How can he be so sure?
So before the trial started, the feds decided to give them a plea deal. If they just pleaded guilty, they would have gave Chris Gotti and Irv Gotti only a...
Hold up. If they pled guilty, that makes what this commentator said even more inaccurate, because, I mean, if they really did nothing wrong and didn't do anything, why would they plead guilty to it?
Year in prison, and they decided to give them another offer because Chris and Irv denied it because they said they had nothing to do with money laundering. They were making legal money. They didn't do anything wrong. So the Fed decided to give them an offer of 6 months. Instead, they denied it as well, and then they eventually went to just giving them parole as long as they pleaded guilty. So it's clear that the feds wanted a conviction regardless. They wanted a great story that tied hip-hop into money laundering, into drugs, into murder, into the case with Supreme and various...
How the fucking hell is that clear? There is absolutely no evidence to suggest that that's what the cops wanted at all. And that is not clear for 1 second. And someone needs to ask the guy doing the talking in all of this, what makes him think that these guys were innocent of something they pled guilty to? I mean, seriously. Shit.
Other things. The crazy thing is the record label, Universal and Def Jam at that time, couldn't even help Irv Gotti or Chris Gotti because they would have been...
why is that a crazy thing?
Defendants if they would have gotten involved. The Fed said don't get involved, don't even help them, don't even try to help them, or else you're going to be involved in this too, and we're going to try taking down your label as well. After weeks of deliberation...
As if the Fed said that. The guy talking don't know what he's on about.
The jury finally decided that Chris Gotti and Irv Gotti were acquitted on December 2nd, 2005 of all charges of money laundering and conspiracy to money launder. And of course, this was a huge win for Chris Gotti and Irv Gotti because after this got done, they could finally focus on the music. After spending $10 million defending themselves, they were finally done with this trial and they could put this behind.
Who actually believes that? Where does he get that fee from? $10 million defending themselves. Yeah, right. God damn. Oh my gosh.
Themselves.
How could he be gullible and believe that, even if he'd heard that? As a commentator,
this didn't affect Supreme though. Supreme, regardless, was still locked up and was getting charged with various other things as time went on. On January 26, 2006, the feds hit Supreme with a new murder charge. The article read, McGriff has been officially charged with the murder of Southeast Queens drug dealer named Troy Singleton. Singleton was murdered execution style on October 28, 2001. He died from 4 shots to the body and 1 to the head outside a sports bar. Prosecutors allege McGriff ordered Singleton's slaying as a revenge for an earlier double homicide Singleton allegedly committed. Prosecutors also claim Singleton was murdered for pistol whipping Ja Rule's manager, Ron Gutter Robinson, outside a Queens, New York nightclub. Supreme was also hit with the death penalty, and if he was convicted of these 2 murders, he could face death in prison. The prosecutors have already charged McGriff at the time with the slaying of Queens, New York rapper Eric E. Moneybags. Prosecutors claimed that McGriff ordered the murder of E. Moneybags in retaliation for the murder of his close associates, Black Just. E. Moneybags was murdered in May 2001. He was shot 10 times after a gunman opened fire on the rapper's SUV as he sat parked on a Queens street. The U.S. Attorney's Office also confirmed that they will introduce evidence that McGriff orchestrated the May 2000 shooting of rapper 50 Cent. In April 2006, Ja Rule released a diss track called 21 Guns featuring Young Merc and Cadillac Ty.
In April 2006, it was safe to say that the nail had been put in Ja Rule's coffin already.
Rule was trying to reignite the beef with 50, hoping that more hype could go around Ja Rule when he was gearing up to drop his album. But of course, 50 never responded.
I mean, why would 50 Cent respond? Ja was dead and buried, you know? He had no reason to respond. I mean, if he responded, he'd only be giving Ja Rule some kind of, you know, like a chance to reignite something of a, you know, minuscule little dot of a career thing.
My young buck got stuck for all them fake stones. And while the hood is screaming G-Unit's homo. Now I ain't saying y'all no gay niggas for shit. Y'all ain't knocking like no straight niggas. Cause now this bitch get the snitching again. I'm throwing shots to the wind. Cause me and Gotti see we dipping again.
As time went on July 2006, in the Vibe magazine issue, Supreme finally decided to speak on various things such as 50 Cent and the allegations that he had people murdered. 50 Cent responded to this article in his September 2006 XXL magazine cover with 50 and Bang.
Oh my god, what kind of hip-hop fan calls XXL magazine XXL? The answer is no hip-hop fan does that. No real hip-hop head does that. That's how I know this guy shouldn't even be making hip-hop videos.
In the article, the interviewer asked, were you surprised?
And the cheek of it, he's making money from it too, because he's ran about, I don't know, 10 adverts so far through 50 minutes.
By the article on Supreme and Vibe, 50 responded saying that's something I think would be in the feds or Don Diva. He's fucking on trial. He shouldn't be talking. He should be keeping his fucking mouth shut. I'm sure if he had a lawyer, his lawyer would tell him not to.
Literally all this guy does is go through magazines and read what's written in them and then try to work out when a track's put out and, you know, with no basic background knowledge really, and
have that fucking
it's just
article.
trash.
After being acquitted with the Murder Inc. trial, Irv Gotti was preparing for his comeback. He rebranded the label into The Inc. instead of Murder Inc. and was gearing up to release Lloyd's new album. With a new deal under Universal Motown, he dropped the first single October 23rd, 2006, called You with Lil Wayne. The single was huge and was a great comeback for Irv Gotti and Murder Inc. at that time. But of course, with good news comes bad news, and on February 1st, 2007, Kenneth Supreme McGriff was convicted of murder for hire at the federal court in the Eastern District of New York on charges that he paid $50,000 to have two rivals, Eric E. Moneybag Smith and Big Nose Troy Singleton, gunned down in 2001. The jury deliberated for 5 days before finding McGriff guilty of murder, conspiracy, and drug trafficking. Then the jury was deciding on whether they should give Supreme the death penalty or he should just get life in prison. And based on a short 2.5 hours with the jury deliberating, they later announced that there was a split decision on the death sentence. 6 voted for death, 6 voted for life in prison. And because of the split decision, the judge decided to give Supreme life in prison without the possibility of parole. Then Irv Gotti was going on a promo
Which
run
is
for
arguably worse than the death penalty. Arguably.
Lloyd's new album, and when he stopped by Funkmaster Flex, he talked about Supreme and 50 Cent.
After you knew what the verdict was for Supreme, what was in his first words?
I'll tell you before that, Flex, and on the realest level, I went to see him, and you know, he was just telling me he was ready to die. And this is the realest thing, you know, because he didn't want to.
Basically, the realest thing is that he was depressed, as you know, as you could expect him to be, very depressed.
Fight the death penalty. He was like, yo, it is what it is. And he said, I lived a long life and everything.
And around the same time, 50 Cent did his own interview and responded to Irv Gotti, as well as Supreme getting life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Supreme McGriff's sentencing.
Yeah.
Have you gotten any backlash about your feelings about that? Because he allegedly murdered your mom.
Nah. You know what? Check this out. Look. Me and Bream had a relationship. We used to be friends at one point. And then it changed. That's how the streets is.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like, but it was funny to hear Irv on the radio talking about Bream and you know, want to end it. Because he got life, you know what I'm saying? He don't want to sit around in the pens, he ready to die. Don't do that, man. He gonna hang up. He sounds like a weak person. Irv should be smart enough not to say that.
That's true. Irv did make he did make McGriff, aka Preem Supreme. He did make him sound weak. 50's right.
That's what he really is.
You know how a lot of times people will tell you like, why would he laugh when you hear Supreme got a double life? Like, some people don't understand why you could dislike him so much.
Yeah, you know what it is? Those people aren't from where I'm from. You can't expect everyone to understand what the actual scenario situations are. You know what I mean? I don't give a fuck if they ever figure it out. You see what I'm saying? That's their business, but we married till death do us part. We're gonna always have issues. It's gonna be like that. Some things can't be resolved. Absolutely can't.
Then Irv Gotti was preparing to get Lloyd's out.
Fair play. Some things can't be resolved, and what I'm gathering from that is that, you know, Preem caused 50 Cent some deep pain, and yeah, he's there smiling his face off, and he obviously has some real reasons to be grinning. And I can understand that people who ain't been through very hardcore trauma and hardcore ish, if you never had a relative murdered or something like that, then maybe you can't understand why someone can smile at the misfortune of another on that level. But yeah, you lot are the blessed ones for not being able to understand certain things.
Out on March 13, 2007, Lloyd released his album, but it debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200, losing to Music Soul Child's album. And when this happened, Irv Gotti said that he had enough. He was confused at how Lloyd could have the number 1 single in America but still go number 2 on the charts. He was having issues with Universal Motown because they didn't understand him, and he decided to call it quits. And Ja Rule ended up not releasing an album in 2006 at all as well. Regardless of Irv Gotti not being in the music industry anymore and basically retiring, Ja Rule decided to continue with his career and created his own label in 2007 called Empire Music Group. On this label, he was gearing up to drop his next studio album called The Mirror. He released his first single, Uh-Oh, featuring Lil Wayne, and it ended up flopping badly. He followed that up with a single called Body. That ended up flopping badly, and then ultimately Ja Rule decided to make that album into a mixtape. Because of the poor performance of that album, Ja Rule eventually disappeared as well from the music industry, and of course, 50 Cent was making fun of him in various interviews over that time.
Ja Rule and Lil Wayne right here. That's what happened. They knew I was coming. They knew I was coming. They knew I was coming.
Ja Rule did
Fast
go
forward
at
to
50
June
Cent when he
16th,
was down.
2009, and 50 Cent released
Before
an
50
LP
was
called
signed
War
by
Angel, and on the
Shitty
track,
Aftermath,
Get the Message, he's
Ja
setting
was
shots
going
at
at 50.
Supreme once again.
So my little niggas fuck brain, and any motherfucker down with them can suck me. I'm still mad, I got the green to make a murder scene. If y'all niggas ain't shooting, y'all get fuck with me. Come fuck with me.
Fast forward towards the end of 2010 in December, Ja Rule got sentenced to 2 years for gun possession and tax evasion. And 50 decided to troll him on Twitter saying, "Yo, word to my mother, if anybody knocked Ja out and fuck him in jail, it's gonna be on, LOL." He continued saying, "Y'all know I'm crazy as fuck, so don't mess with my little homie Ja." He said, "I'm well concerned, I'm say it again, I'm well connected, don't fuck with my little homie Ja." Essentially trolling Ja Rule on Twitter. Ja Rule responded saying, "Yo, boo-boo, chill out before I tell Twitter Nation your little secret. Laugh my ass off, Dildo Fifth." He said, "Dildo Fifth, I heard about you, ha ha ha." And of course, they kept sending shots at each other before Ja Rule went to prison. 50 even got on Funkmaster Flex and talked about Ja Rule going to prison and that he knows people in prison that could hurt Ja and various other things. When Ja Rule got out of prison in May 2013, Towards the end of 2013, in November, Ja Rule and 50 boarded the same plane. Nothing happened, however. 50 saw Ja, Ja saw 50, nothing popped off. Ja Rule even tweeted at that time, "What are the chances me and 50, same flight, same row, no problems, grown man shit." When 50 was asked about seeing Ja Rule at the airplane, he made fun of him, saying that he walked around the airplane, making Ja Rule nervous. Ja Rule saw this and simply said he went to sleep when 50 was on the airplane. He had no worries about 50 being there.
On the plane, did you and Ja Rule, did y'all have any words like, "Hey, how you doing"?
I knew he was there before I got there.
On the plane?
Yeah.
Man, so do y'all see each other?
No, like I saw him. Yeah, we sat right in first class. Like he sat on the other side, like by the window. So somebody sitting at the actual edge of the seat, and I sat down and I kept getting up and moving around and things.
Seeing if anything would happen.
Just making him uncomfortable because I knew that he was by himself. It was like him and another guy.
You're horrible. Making him uncomfortable.
He's a piece of stool.
I'm on the plane. He comes on the plane. I'm on my phone doing something. So I see like a big dude coming on the plane and shit. So I look up and see who the big dude is, big black dude.
Let's see what Josh side is saying.
Type of security dude, you know what I'm saying? So I'm looking now to see who's with the security dude. It's him. You know what I'm saying? So he sees me, I see him. He looks at me, he's like, "Yo, what up?" I'm like, "All right, what up?" Go back to doing what I'm doing. He goes and sits down in his seat. I'm in my seat. No more words were said. No more nothing, no more anything. You know what I'm saying? Shortly after that, plane took off. I propped up my pillow. You know what I'm saying? Took me a nap.
50 and Irv Gotti also got into it various times on Instagram. In early 2016, 50 saw the interview Irv Gotti and Ja Rule did. He posted on Instagram saying, "I took everything from these two fools. I know it hurts to watch me do everything they dream of, but they have to accept it. Look at the bright side, there's always reality TV." He continued it and went at Irv Gotti's father, saying Irv said he a grown man and his father is 82 years old. "Tell your daddy I said hurry up and die, punk. Let's get to it, no more IG." Irv Gotti responded by posting 50 Cent's alleged order of protection, saying, "I'm too old and too grown and smart for this bullshit. Nothing this guy does affects me or gets to me." He even ended up involving 50's baby mama and Meek Mill. In late 2016, around November, Ja Rule appeared in a funny Foot Locker commercial where he's kind of reminiscing on the times when he was at the height of his career. And in the commercial, he's acting as an Uber driver.
So is the height of Ja Rule's career considered to be his beef with 50 Cent then? Interesting.
And of course, 50 Cent took advantage of this and went on Instagram immediately after the commercial came out, and he said, "He really driving an Uber now? Damn, laugh my ass off."
You know, fellas, you can't take sustained greatness like that for granted. It's so hard to achieve. Once you find greatness, you hold on to it. I mean, you can lose it just like that. One minute you're on top of the world. The next, it's all different. It's all different.
Yeah, you know, we just up here on the right.
Yes. Oh, yeah, sure. Hey, you gentlemen have a good evening. Oh, and don't forget to rate me 5 stars.
Interesting words that they had Ja Rule say in that advert as well. Damn, how much did Ja get paid to say that? I guess Ja has a good sense of humor in the way that I guess he can smile at himself, kind of thing.
Yeah, man.
He doesn't seem bitter.
Yeah. See you guys.
And the funny thing is, while I was recording this audio, 50 Cent and Ja Rule went at it again. While 50 was promoting his movie Den of Thieves, Ice Cube's son brought up Ja Rule, and 50 mentioned that he put Ja Rule's career to sleep.
I told 50 when I met him, I like
They never went again at it again, as in send diss tracks to each other in bundles and stuff.
No, I did it. I was into it. He came out, threw the CD right out my grandma's car. Really? It's not for me. Nope.
This is not for me.
That's not for me. That's not for me. Man, on the streets like this.
That awkward? In 2018, if you seen Ja Rule, it's not like some on-site type of stuff, right? Okay.
Like if you had
You the one who brought his name up.
No.
And of course, Ja Rule saw this and took it to Twitter saying, "Fun hip-hop fact, 50 Cent is pussy." He continued it saying, "Let's be clear, I mind my business, but for some reason 50 Cent keeps my name in his mouth. I think he'd rather have my dick in his mouth, laugh my ass off, tickle booty." And he continued, kept going, talking about how 50 got stabbed, shot, and that how he was the victim. So of course you can tell this beef will never end. 50 and Ja Rule have had too much history in this beef, too much violence, too much lives lost, careers ended, all kinds of stuff. So this beef will never.
Too much lives lost? Is this guy for real? I mean, I wouldn't. It's not like there was 10 lives lost on each side. Come on. But yeah, I mean, listen to this and dropping comments from my own mouth here. Tired and stirred and sleepy as I am. Still being cool. The only thing that ain't cool is the fact that the commentator and the guy doing all of this, luckily we don't hear him too much, and most of the time his horse's mouth isn't coming from Ja or 50 or Irv or whoever. But yeah, the commentator guy, he ain't a real hip-hop head at all. And he shouldn't be paid advertising money, so me and my team, we're gonna come up with the real raw stuff and outdo this guy by a million miles. Simple.
And now let's talk about who won the battle portion of this beef.
We
in
actually
the midst
invested
of the battle while everything was going on. Who won? In the beginning,
is this guy for real? This guy ain't even a real hip hop head. How the hell can he judge who won? That's bizarre. That's bizarre he's even gone there.
Ja Rule was clearly winning. He had a platinum album.
Sorry? What? Pause? Oh, let's just let this guy continue. This guy ain't even a hip-hop head. Come on. He ain't got the credentials to judge nothing.
In 1999, he had a huge label behind him with Def Jam. He had his own label with Murder Inc. So it's clear in the beginning Ja Rule was winning. 50 Cent in 1999, 2000, 2001 wasn't anything. He couldn't even get enough. But
is this guy so stupid that he doesn't realize you could argue how is he winning when he's having to pick on an artist that you're saying didn't exist? How would that mean that Ja Rule is winning if he's giving all of this credit to an artist that, according to this commentator, does not exist and has nothing and is nothing? That wouldn't mean that that man is winning. Let's just let him talk.
To get Columbia Records to release his debut album at that time. With all the information in this video and in this documentary, you can clearly see...
Sorry, did this guy just call his thing, his YouTube video, a documentary? Because this ain't what I would call a documentary.
Was Ja Rule's fault as to why his career ended up the way it ended up, and here's why I say that. A lot of people have the argument that 50 Cent had a whole label behind him.
Here's why he says this. Oh my god. Does anyone care why this guy says it? Or for his opinion at all? Please tell me if there's one real proper hip-hop head, hardcore hip-hop head, who had their ear to the streets back then and was truly invested at the time that all this was kicking off. Do you care for the commentator's opinion? Remember, he calls XXL magazine XXL magazine.
50 Cent had Eminem, 50 Cent had Dr. Dre, and without them, 50 wouldn't have won this. But whose fault is it on who got Dr. Dre and Eminem involved in this beef? It was clearly Ja Rule's fault. When 50 signed with Eminem and Dr. Dre, Ja Rule and magazines said that if 50 released any diss tracks going at him and Murder Inc., that he would attack Dr. Dre and Eminem and everyone else on that label, and that was a terrible, terrible move. When 50 signed with Eminem and Dr. Dre, he made it clear to Eminem and Dre that he wouldn't attack Ja Rule, and he didn't. If you look at the documentary, he didn't release any diss tracks. He did release a taunt.
Pause, there is no documentary. This is not what you call a documentary.
But that's about it. And when Ja Rule and Irv Gotti went to Hot 97 and presented that order of protection, that's when 50 decided to diss them again. 50 was leaving the situation alone because he had signed already a big major deal.
Actually, in Eminem's own words, it was because, do you know what? I'm gonna save it for a new video that I'm coming soon.
Was shady, so why would he attack Ja Rule even further? The fact that they went up to Hot 97, presented that, is what made 50 go in the studio and release that big mixtape, Automatic Fire, going at them. And then Ja Rule would go in various interviews and threaten Eminem and Dr. Dre, so it's clear that Ja Rule brought Eminem and Dr. Dre into the beef. 50 never wanted them involved, and Ja Rule now, years later, regrets doing that. In various interviews, he said, I should have never mentioned Eminem and Dr. Dre. We should have just kept it between me and 50. So when people say, oh, 50 needed M and Dre to help him out, that wasn't the case. It was Ja Rule that got them involved. And to prove this even further, Ja Rule involved Busta Rhymes, who had nothing to do with this. In Busta Rhymes' verse where he dissed Ja Rule, he even said it himself. He's like, Jeffrey, what the fuck are you involving me for? Because he was clueless as to why Ja Rule was calling out Busta Rhymes when Busta Rhymes had nothing to do with this. The same thing applies to Eminem and Dr. Dre. They had nothing to do with this. Ja Rule just decided to go at the whole label, which was a bad move. And here's another thing that a lot of people say when they argue about 50 versus Ja Rule. They say that Ja...
Is this guy not even gonna mention just one thing I could say out of many? The fact they weren't just Ja going at 50, it was Murder Inc., like the whole label. It was like multiple people, you know. It wasn't just Ja on his own.
Rule won in the streets. That's true and that's false, and here's why. You have to give Ja Rule props for being one of the only rappers to have a physical altercation with 50 Cent. They ended up fighting. That's the only physical...
Sorry, why'd you give props for that? I'm confused there.
Altercation with
50 I have a lot more to say than what I'm saying. And that's
Cent that any rapper has had, besides Fredro Starr from Onyx. Every rapper that 50's beef with has not had a physical altercation with 50. Not Rick Ross, not Game, not Jadakiss, not Fat Joe, nobody. So you have to give
it to him. Oh, hold up. Wasn't it Ja and 10 Men versus 50? Ja with a weapon and 10 Men versus 50? Alright. I'm trying not to say too much. I'm saving it for a proper video.
Ja Rule props for having a fight with 50, for allegedly stabbing 50, having something to do with that, and for allegedly having something to do with 50 getting shot. Now, I'm not...
This guy, this English guy who clearly doesn't know all that much about this whole thing, sitting back saying, people, give props to him. He stabbed him. Give him props. Come on, big him up. In the next breath, this guy, if there was a knife crime on his road where he lives, he would probably be all out there, anti-knife crime. Do you know what I mean? Hypocritical.
Promoting violence and saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying that's the respectable thing about Ja Rule in this whole beef. And
Hold up, did he just say, I'm not promoting violence and saying that's a good thing, but that's the respectable thing? I'm not promoting violence. It just so happens it's respectable to knife someone, to stab someone up. Earns my respect. According to this idiot guy who doesn't seem to know hip-hop at all.
Here's why I say Ja Rule lost in the streets as well. After 50 got stabbed in the Hit Factory...
Pause. I'm trying not to add too much, but you can't lose and win at the same time. But according to this guy, Ja Rule's now both won and lost in the streets.
Average person would not pursue the beef anymore. But 50 didn't care. He kept pursuing it, which shows that he's fearless and that Ja Rule and Murder Inc. does not intimidate him. And in the streets, that was very clear. Even after getting shot, 50 still pursued Ja Rule, Supreme, and everyone in the streets that had something against him. I mean, he came back with a song called Fuck You that blatantly went at everybody. And the reason why this is highly respectable is because 50, when he released that Fuck You song after getting shot, he had no...
Yo, people, I couldn't help myself from jump in again. If you want to earn this guy's respect, you stab someone and make a track and call it F.U.
money. So easily Supreme, Ja Rule, Irv Gotti, anyone in Murder Inc., they were selling millions and millions of records, had #1 hits. They could have easily paid someone in Queens $50,000 to shoot 50 again and possibly kill him. Money could have been put on his head easily. But 50 did not care. He kept going at them, and you have to give respect to 50 for that. He went at people that were millionaires, that hated his guts, that could have easily got him killed. And that shows...
Pause, hold up, who here is the millionaire, at which point and where, and he needs to elaborate. He said millionaires is in plural and making out that 50, what, was broke or something? Come on, man. Let me just stop and save it for the next vid.
Two things, that 50's either crazy or that Murder Inc. and Ja Rule and Supreme aren't the real big gangsters that they say they were, because 50 didn't stop regardless of what they did to him. And the third thing that's always mentioned in this 50 versus Ja beef is that Ja Rule couldn't respond to 50 when he wanted to because Murder Inc. was under federal investigation. As you can see in this video, in the timeline, you can see that in January 2003, they were under investigation. And throughout the whole year of 2003, Ja Rule was releasing disses towards 50. So this argument makes no sense to me.
I was about to say that I don't even know where you got that rubbish. Or, like, this commentator guy, I mean, I have so many questions about, everything and almost anything he said.
Could argue, however, that later on, when the label got done with the whole federal investigation in 2005, that they couldn't come back because Leroy Cohen's, ended up buying the Music Soul Child album, and Lloyd couldn't get the #1 album, and then that's when Irv stopped. You could argue that and be like, that's the reason why, or politics behind the scenes, but a lot of the behind the scenes argument isn't fact or proof. I mean, we can't see that. We don't know if Shady and Jimmy Iovine and Interscope was this big juggernaut that, paid all these DJs to promote, 50 more than Ja Rule, and if Ja Rule didn't pay, he wouldn't get his music played. All these arguments are just behind the scenes stuff with no real proof to them. And another argument that a lot of people have is that 50 Cent is a snitch and that he filed an order of protection. If you look at this, if you really think about this, after 50 got stabbed, he went straight downstairs, went to the office across from the building where he got stabbed at, and Benzino drove him home. The police report says that it was immediately called after the altercation happened. So it's clear that 50 didn't pick up a phone and call the police. That just didn't make any sense. He left immediately after he got stabbed. When you get stabbed, the first thing in your mind isn't, oh, I'm going to call the police and I'm going to report this. No, you're going to get your ass home or to the hospital.
Says the guy who says that it's respectable to stab someone.
And get stitched up, because the police report said that night it was called in right after it happened. It would only make sense that a big corporation, a recording studio, would call it in. They want nothing to do with this beef. They have nothing to do with this beef. So of course they would call it in, and of course the DJ would report and snitch on everybody there because he got stabbed for no reason. He has nothing to do with 50 and Ja. Nothing to do with them at all. So the fact that he got stabbed and he's like, fuck it, I'm going to get some money out of this. So the whole order of protection thing, it is real, but it's not 100% clear that 50 Cent was the one that requested it at all. And as far as diss tracks go, I give it to 50 Cent as well, because Back Down was clearly the nail in the coffin. He put that on his debut album, Get Rich or Die Trying, and that ended up selling over 14 million copies worldwide. So everyone heard that diss track. It's like Drake's Back to Back. It was played all over the place. It was a club banger for a lot of people too. And Eminem, of course, lyrically went at Ja Rule like crazy. Dr. Dre even had a crazy verse going at Ja Rule.
Was this guy around back in them times? Because there's certain things he says that makes me wonder. Oh, a lot of different things.
Busta Rhymes as well. So it's clear the diss tracks were way better on the G Unit camp versus the Murder Inc. camp. Although I did like Loose Change, That was a very, very good diss track, a good attempt at going at 50. He just shouldn't have mentioned Dr. Dre and Eminem. That was a bad move on his end, like I said. But yeah, that's my take on it. I give 50 Cent the win for the battle portion of this beef. Ja Rule definitely put up a good fight. Like I said, you have to give him props for certain things, and he did not die after this beef. I mean, in 2004, he had a number 5 Hot 100 hit with R. Kelly. He had that New York hit, so it's clear that his career didn't die. There was just something that happened in 2005 that couldn't allow them to come back. And a lot of people are going to say it's politics behind the scenes, or if Gotti's going to say what he said in those interviews, and that's just what it is. We don't know 100%.
His career
Now
was
let's talk
dead.
about the war
Come
portion
on.
of the beef. This is after the beef has settled, who's prevailed, who's become more successful, and all of that. And this one's clear as well.
Oh,
it's of course
come
50.
on, that's ridiculous to even say.
He's had successful albums after the beef. Went diamond with the Massacre. Ended up going 4 times platinum with Curtis. Although Ja Rule,
This guy clearly don't realize that the beef finished Ja Rule.
in 2004 was gaining buzz again and becoming more relevant. He then declined because of the things that happened at Murder Inc. with the trial with Supreme. It definitely affected Ja Rule, Irv Gotti, Chris Gotti, and everyone involved at Murder Inc. Regardless of that, though, 50 ended up shitting on everybody, even Supreme at that time, that was trying to destroy him, trying to get him killed. So it's clear that 50 won the war in terms of the streets and in the mainstream light. And that's finally it for this episode of 50 Cent versus Ja Rule. Who?
Oh my gosh. This guy is the wrong guy to be presenting what he would like to call both a documentary and an episode. I mean, goddamn, he did a great job of making me even more tired and so much more ready for bed. Alright, good night, people. Because, yeah, I'm off to bed. Can't even be asked to share any more of my thoughts upon that one. But yeah, peace, love, respect. Subscribe to the channel if you want. More importantly, comments. But yeah, search in the YouTube search bar or just put it in the Google search bar. RealEyes is one word, Cook is the other. So RealEyes and then COOK. Love, peace, respect.